Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bandit's Den. Today, I want to talk about the resurgence of paganism and non monotheistic spiritual practices in the modern day, as well as, I guess, a little bit of magic. I'll try to make this video quick because I have a pizza in the oven, a non-dairy pizza. I'm going to see how it is. I'll let you guys know maybe in the comment section. Today, I think a lot of it has to do with modern time and the scientific world. The scientific world has pretty much given us the illusion that we know everything, and any question we have, we can answer pretty much without a doubt what's going on. But the thing is, a lot of atheists, such as my past self, don't realize is that every time there's a question answered in science, more questions pop up. And we've been doing this. We've been taking a question, answering it, and as a result of answering that question, a few more questions pop up. We've been doing that cycle for a few hundred years now, ever since the Renaissance, essentially. Because we came out of the Dark Ages into the Renaissance, and that was a time where we started scientifically answering questions. Technology started advancing. Granted, at a fairly slow pace back then, but still advancing. And the last 100 years or so, 120 years, ever since the Industrial Revolution, we have been advancing at a rapid rate. And today, atheism is more prevalent than it ever has been. More and more people are walking away from organized religion than ever before in the last 1,000 years or so. And sure, it's really damaging to those organized religions financially because they've always had the world wrapped around their little finger. Because they had all the answers, and now a lot of people are believing maybe they don't. Well, it seems to me a lot of people getting into paganism or non-monotheistic spirituality or magic, which are three totally different things, and they can be unrelated if they want to be. I think a lot of atheists are getting into that because believing in absolutely nothing spiritual, it's a really sterile environment. When I had COVID, I couldn't smell anything for a certain duration. I could still breathe through my nose like normal, but I couldn't smell anything, and I never experienced that before. It was really off-putting, and I didn't like it. It wasn't just because I knew that if there was a gas leak in my house, I wouldn't know until my house blows up. I would have had no idea. It wasn't just because of that. It was just off-putting. Everything, just having no smell. It was a sterile environment. Now, of course, we have 5 physical senses, and I like to think that the sense for the spiritual is the human 6th sense. And of course, animals have this too. Animals can sense spiritual entities in some ways better than humans. And so when one goes atheistic and in some cases even agnostic, you're kind of giving up that sense. You're just like putting plugs in your ears. It's really annoying to have plugs in your ears, which is why as soon as you're done jackhammering some concrete, your tendency is to take those earplugs out because you want to hear again. And so when I subjected myself to putting plugs in my spiritual senses for 20 years, there were so many things that I was missing out on. And there were some problems in my life I just couldn't find answers to, which I can now. But the thing is, paganism has a lot of giving in it. It can give a lot. Like, I'm not talking about giving and receiving. I'm talking about it has a lot of slack in it. And so what you can do is you can kind of fashion things to your own liking in paganism and in non-monotheistic, non-organized religion, spirituality. You can kind of mold it to fit a form that best suits you. And that is what people did historically. And one of the main reasons why I was looking for answers, right? Because I wanted to become spiritual. I wanted to feel something beyond what my five senses provide. And the use of drugs and alcohol for me were out of the question. So I developed a really basic idea of spirituality, and I looked at how life is so much bigger than me and how cool it is, essentially, and how it's all out of my control. So there's something bigger than me out there, and it's life in its entirety, the force of life. And so I was looking around for anything I could add to that, anything I could build on top of that, and I ended up finding paganism. I looked through all the different kinds of paganism, and really there's a multitude, because most pagan practices are form fitted. They're fitted to the form that a person or groups of people enjoy the most and think is the best approach spiritually for themselves. And another reason why I chose it is because, well, the practice of paganism and the practice of non-organized religious spirituality and the practice of magic, all three of those far predate the oldest monotheistic religion on the planet, which is Judaism. Judaism is something like 3,800 years old, whereas the oldest recordings of magic are about 5,000 years old from ancient Mesopotamia, which is the oldest writings known to man. The recorded human history started occurring 5,000 years ago, 3,000 BC. And of course, there is hypothetical evidence of magic that way predates even the written records found from Mesopotamia. But also, of course, paganism and non-organized religious spirituality all predate that as well. There have been excavations worldwide from obviously pagan spiritual subscribing groups of people that far predate the first conception of a monotheistic organized religion. And so my thought behind that was, well, that was the first ever conception. And my idea is perhaps that is the most pure conception of the spiritual. It was the way that spirituality first came into the mind of humans. And so I figured that that would be spirituality in its most raw, unrefined form, untampered by humans, untampered by ages of changing and ages of injection of political ideologies, which one can find a lot of in the Bible, for example. Now, I'm not hating on any monotheistic religions. If it works for you, it works for you. And good for you, too. But I just don't like the idea of only believing this set of stuff from this book that has extreme amounts of political ideologies injected into it. I'm not exploring the spiritual world in order to get political. I get enough of that crap in real life from my peers. I mean, I'll have one peer in my right ear screaming far right-wing stuff, and another peer in my left ear screaming far left-wing stuff. And I don't want that in the spiritual world. I don't think the spiritual world gives a damn who's going to be president next year. And I really personally don't either. I mean, it's going to happen no matter what I do. It's something out of my control as an individual. So that's the thing is, I find I think a lot of pagans would agree with me, and a lot of practitioners of magic would agree with me, is that you're given practically no control when you subscribe to a monotheistic organized religion. The only control you have is whether or not you, or I guess the extent to which you practice your spirituality under the approval of others, under the approval of your holy text, such as paying tithes to your organized religion. If you really want to be a good practitioner, then you must donate 10% of your worldly earnings every year before tax. If you really want to be a good practitioner of certain certain organized religious spiritualities, then you can and cannot eat these set things. And you have to attend a congregation once a week. And you have to say these prayers word for word and whatnot. Well, I'm not really into that. Every person is different. That's like telling every person in the world to eat these meals every single day for the rest of your life. Well, if that meal includes dairy, some people are lactose intolerant and they just can't digest it properly. If that diet contains peanuts, then some people are going to die because they can't digest peanuts properly. And that physical difference between people, the physical differences, even just as far as allergies go, there's a multitude of other physical differences between each individual regardless of race. That, I think, also applies to the spiritual world, the spiritualities of people. Every person is just a little bit different. And that's why within even the same regions of ancient pagan cultures, you see differences. And I know within my own loose spiritual community, they're called cults. I mean, there were cults for each god. There were cults for even like the cult of the serpent was a thing. The cult of the stag. Those all existed in their own right. Of course, we don't have the actual descriptors for those groups of people that had, but the point is, each of those were form-fitted for the group of people or the person practicing it. And so there's a lot of leeway for changing things to fit your own human experience, your own spiritual experience. And I think people are looking for more answers than just the creation story or intelligent design. I think people are looking for more answers than current organized religion can give us. And sure, that's unfortunate for organized religion, but with any entity that has a leader or a set of leaders, because they're ran by humans, there is a major susceptibility to corruption. And that's another concern of a lot of people. So with my practices, I don't give my money to any specific person. Now, of course, my ritual objects, they can be provided by just about anybody. And I choose who I buy it from. And they're not my high priest or high priestess. And I do whatever the hell I want with my spiritual life. And that is what empowers me. I think a lot of people feel a disparity of power even when they're atheist or in an organized religion. There is a lack of individual power. And what paganism and what non-monotheistic spirituality, non-organized religious spirituality, and what magic grant individuals is power and choice. And that's huge, especially in these times where within your country, those who are in power just see you as a number. Having power over something is extremely attractive these days, and that's what paganism and the other things bring to the table. Anyways, I probably need to get my pizza out of the oven by now. Looks like it's about time. I'm probably going to enjoy the crap out of it and then go hang out at a park, because today is 4th of July. I know this will post long after this, but hopefully you guys had a good 4th of July. Hopefully you guys stayed safe out there. And for anybody that's not American, I hope you had a good weekend regardless, because every weekend is a good time to become spiritually and emotionally grounded again, and a good time to recount the week that had just occurred and look forward toward the week that is about to, and see where one can better themselves all throughout the entirety of it. Anyways, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for joining me here in the Bandit's Den. Later, guys.